Hello and welcome back to another in-depth weather video. Today we are going to be talking about Winter Storm Lana, which will be impacting parts of Texas, the Rockies, as well as moving into the south, bringing close to 6 inches of snow in some spots over here, as well as maybe even closer to 8 to 10 inches in parts of Texas. So if you like this video, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell. Now let's get right on into it. So I am on the National Weather Service page, and we have plenty of winter storm warnings issued in Texas, as well as parts of New Mexico. And I'm expecting these winter storm watches to be converted into winter storm warnings here pretty soon. Now, the track of this storm is going to be very far to the south, and it is very unusual for Texas and Louisiana to be getting some snowfall, but they could get a pretty significant amount. Now, the low pressure could be forming in Mexico or off the coast of Louisiana, and that'll be moving to the east-northeast. There is a chance that this starts to pivot toward the northeast. Then we have to start watching the northeastern part of the U.S. for some snowfall as well, but I'd give that a very low chance right now. Now, let's go to the winter weather probabilistic outlooks to see your chances of getting certain amounts of snowfall. So, here is the probability of receiving 1 inch or more of snow in the next 24 hours. You can see we're looking for this 95% chance, and that is in most of central Texas. As we move into the next run here, you can see that same area is kind of highlighted. And then you go further, it starts to move toward the east. Now, Dallas is a very difficult situation to forecast because Dallas hasn't gotten an inch of snowfall in a very long time, almost a record amount of time. There is a possibility of getting an inch out of this storm. I think it's about 30% chance. I think you're going to get maybe like a dusting. Now, as we move into Tuesday, we do have a chance of receiving an inch in 24 hours in parts of Louisiana. Now, certain models have up to 6 inches of snow, including the European model. Now, once you get past Tuesday, the chances go down significantly. Now, Wednesday would be the time frame that we would start looking into the northeast, but right now, most model runs have this storm going off the coast. So, let's go to those models. First up, we got the NAM 12-kilometer model to give us that extra range. We have a low pressure here in New Mexico. Now we can continue on here and see that we have kind of two sections to this storm. You have some moisture in Mexico, and you have that snow in Colorado, New Mexico, and starting to move into Texas. Now, as you start to move south with this low, it'll draw up that Mexican moisture. That snow continues to move into the region. Then these two air masses kind of collide here, and you get that cold but heavy snowfall. That continues throughout most of Texas. You can see that you're starting to get into these higher decibel comparative to Z, which is just a way of saying it's going to be very heavy, especially when you get closer to that rain-snow line, is what usually happens with these storms. Now, that low pressure tries to form off the coast of Texas here in this model, but you still get a lot of heavy snow, and then as that low pressure starts to form and strengthen, you get some snow into parts of the south as well. Then that low pressure forms over here, tries to go to the north, but I think we're just going to have this storm system up here kind of shifting it down to the south. But again, there is a possibility here that it tries to turn to the north. You can see that it's trying to right here, but it just gets kicked off of the coast. Now the NAM is showing here for total accumulated snowfall. Parts of Texas getting easily 8 to 10 inches. Now this eastern Texas part here, that is disputed among models, and I think that the model that's going to be most accurate with this system has this kind of being a gap where there's not going to be as much snowfall, moves that higher amount of snowfall into Louisiana as well as into western Texas. So you can see the NAM here has that target zone in eastern Texas Now, let's move on to the GFS and see what it has as the target zone. So the GFS is a global model, so we have a lot more range than we need, but we're still going to be looking at this system here in low pressure. Now this time it's in Mexico, brings in that that Mexican moisture a little bit sooner, and you get some extremely heavy snowfall rates into those pinks. That is, I believe, a fifth of an inch an hour, so that is pretty serious in terms of snowfall. And then it kind of dissipates as it moves off to the east. That low pressure forms. Now the GFS is predicting this to be completely dismantled by the time it gets into the southeast, and it tries to reform way too far out to the east for any nor'easter to happen. Now the European model is another global model, so we have a little bit too much range here, but we're still going to be looking at this low pressure, this time in western New Mexico, moves to the east, starts to pull in that Mexican moisture a little bit earlier, and then you can see very heavy snowfall rates in western Texas, kind of starts to thin out in terms of snowfall in eastern Texas, and then that snowfall comes back into Louisiana and Mississippi. As that moves toward the north, the European just has this thing going right off the coast with no real intensity to that low, really weak low pressure there. So now in terms of both of these models, these global models, let's go to the total accumulated snowfall for all of these. We're going to put them all at 84 hours. Now the European model has snow depth, so take this one with a little bit more of a grain of salt. At 84 hours, but you can see the European has the target zones in Louisiana and western Texas. The GFS has the target zones it has a kind of moderate snowfall across the board in Texas, and the NAM is kind of the most bullish in terms of snowfall amounts. The European is kind of in the middle with a little bit of gap in eastern Texas, and the GFS is kind of in the middle there too. The GFS and the European are pretty close. The big difference is out to the east. I think the European has the best blend of those models, so that is what I kind of based my predictions on. So speaking of that, let's go to my predictions for this storm. So here are my predictions for Winter Storm Lana. I kind of took all these models, kind of blended them together, and you can see that I have, for snowfall, a very large area of less than 3 inches extending from northern Colorado to western New Mexico, down through Texas, Louisiana, up into Mississippi and Alabama, and then ending in Tennessee. Now, in terms of 3 to 6, this is where things get a little bit smaller. You have some areas in the higher elevations that could see some heavier snowfall, as well as most of western and northwestern Texas. Dallas, I have you in the less than 3 inches realm there. I think you'll get maybe an inch or two. Now areas such as maybe Abilene and Lubbock, Texas, could see closer to that 3 to 6, and then you have some areas here that could see 6 to 12. Lubbock, you might be closer to that as well, just depending on how those bands set up. But I do have a large area of 6 to 12 in Texas, a smaller area in Louisiana, as well as a wider area of 3 to 6 in Louisiana and Mississippi as well. And then I also have an area of 6 to 12 in parts of Colorado, just where you have those upper elevations kind of making an impact. Now, in terms of rainfall, this thing will be packing a little bit of a punch for rainfall. Some areas along the coastline where you get that moisture could see upwards of an inch of rain. Now, I divided this into 2 categories. The green here, which extends from Virginia to Mississippi, and then another area in New Mexico and Texas, that's less than a half an inch of rain. And some areas might just see a little bit of drizzle, even maybe just a little bit of mist, especially in these northern areas, depending on where that low pressure tracks. Now, I have an area of half an inch plus, that's in eastern North Carolina. That's where this storm will start to pivot toward the north a little bit, and could see a little bit of higher rain totals there. As long as the storm does make the kind of generate another low pressure right over here, and it starts to go this direction here. Now, in Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama, I also have another area of a ½ inch plus. This could go up to an inch plus in some spots over here, but that depends on where some bands set up as well. So these are my predictions. Comment in the comment section down below. Which model do you think is best for this system? Do you think that the NAM is going to be right? Do you think that the GFS is going to be right? Or do you think that the European is going to be right? Also, comment in the comment section down below, do you think my predictions are right? Or do you think, you know what, maybe I should have gone a little bit more toward one model than the others? But this storm is definitely an outlier. We usually don't get this much snowfall in areas of the southern plains. We've had a very active year for snowfall in the southern plains. Areas of Oklahoma have seen more snowfall than the northeast and parts of the Great Lakes region. So it's a crazy winter season. This is no doubt one of the crazier storms, but we definitely got to watch this storm system for some major travel impacts as well. But that's all I have for this storm. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys next time.